thought long and hard about whether or not I actually wanted to make this video. And not only about whether I wanted to, but whether or not I needed to. And for the first time in about 5 days, I'm finally alone long enough to try to live with my silence and try to put everything in order the way that they need to be. On Thursday, March 9th of 2017, at 16 weeks, I gave birth to a little boy at 2:56 in the morning. I had been told at about 9:30 in the morning on Wednesday that my son no longer had a heartbeat and that there was no movement. At 2:30, that was confirmed, and I was admitted to the hospital in the labor and delivery ward at about 4:30 that night. I was given 2 options. One of them called a D&E, which is a dilation and evacuation, basically surgery. Or I could be given medication to start labor and give birth to my son. I chose to give birth to my son. And at 7 o'clock that night, I was given my first oral and vaginal dose of medication to start my cervix to dilate. During this time, I had my mother, my grandmother, my mom, and my best friend, and my husband with me. As the day progressed, my husband's mother and father came to visit. My sister and my brother came to visit, and my dad also was there. My water broke about 20 minutes before Sigh was born. And I gave birth to a lifeless little boy, surrounded by my family. First off, I wanted to recognize the amazing team of doctors and nurses that were surrounding me during that time. I don't think I would have been able to handle this situation as well as I have without their help and guidance. Also, I wanted to thank my midwife for being an incredible woman and an incredible doctor. Ever since I got the pregnancy test and it came back positive, I felt something inside of me that just told me that something was not right. And I really just wanted to chalk it up to my normal anxiety just because I am pregnant. You know, my hormones are all out of whack, and when that goes out of whack, it tends to affect everything else. And so I kind of tried to push it away from my mind, and wait for that first appointment, and it felt like I waited years. On the first appointment, she did an ultrasound, and she was able to find him, and he was so small. But he was there, and he was alive. Two weeks later, I had my first ultrasound, my first official ultrasound. And it was amazing how much had changed in that amount of time. He had arms and legs, and you could see his face. And he was jumping and dancing. And he had a strong heartbeat of 160. The day of that ultrasound, I was terrified. The kind of terror that kind of just has lived inside of you for so long that if it gets any worse, you're liable to drive yourself crazy. During those 10 minutes when he was on that screen, I just wanted to reach out and hold him and protect him. I had my second doctor's appointment not long after the ultrasound, within that week or 2 weeks, I think. And she found his heartbeat immediately. Actually, my daughter did. She found his heartbeat, and it was 160. Again, he was being really, really steady. And at that time, I had not felt him yet. But now I had real proof within myself that he was there. And he was okay. My doctor asked me to make an appointment for 4 weeks later. And that was on Wednesday. When I went in at 9:30 that morning, it was supposed to be a normal doctor's appointment, a scheduled one that I had prepared for. Just before this appointment also, I got all of my blood work done. And all they said was that my vitamin D levels were low, which was I'm always anemic. And to inform me that my due date was August 26th. On the Saturday before the 9th, I remember feeling my baby jump inside of me. I remember feeling him kick and squirm and dance. It wasn't a movement that anyone outside of me could feel at the time. They tried, but they could never find him, and his kicks weren't just strong enough to reach that point yet, but he was so strong. He made me jump a couple of times. On Sunday, my husband and I went out shopping, and I got several new shirts, maternity shirts and pants, because I could no longer fit in anything that I had, and a pregnancy pillow and a breast pump. On Monday, everything was pretty normal, but I cannot recall if I felt Sigh move that day or Tuesday. But I do remember that on Tuesday afternoon, I almost said out loud that I felt like I was having a contraction. It wasn't strong, it was just a tightening of my belly and some tightening in my back. And it wasn't anything that I couldn't deal with. I thought it was just a Braxton Hicks contraction that just so happened to feel worse. I also noticed that the pressure in my bowel on my bladder had increased, and I was going to the restroom more often instead of less often, like they had pretty much specified that happens in the second trimester. I remember that night, and since Sunday night, I realized that I hadn't had any of the dreams that I normally did, and that I had actually slept pretty well. I was also suffering from a very major migraine Saturday, Sunday, and Monday that I pretty much chalked up to the weather that we had been having at the time, which was almost continual downpour. It was during that time that I took some medication for my migraine. Normally I don't like taking medication at all. Especially when I'm pregnant, it's not something that I like to do. And my husband had finally convinced me to do it because he could tell that I was hurting. I went to bed Tuesday night. Woke up Wednesday morning and tried on one of the pair of leggings that I had just bought and a shirt. And I remember thinking that the leggings felt so tight around my belly, and that I was a little upset that I had bought them because they said that it was one size fits all and they're specifically maternity leggings and they should not be this uncomfortable. But I was running out of time to go to my appointment, and so I just kept them on. I got the kids ready, and I got myself ready. And as we left the house, I said goodbye to the puppies, and I locked the door behind me, climbed into the car, and arrived at my appointment. I don't know how to describe the feeling of emptiness that you experience once you've given birth. I know most mothers deal with that. I've had 2 children and it was the same feeling. That right after they're born, you almost feel as if you're wide open to the whole world. But you also feel so empty. It's like you just, or something from inside of you was just poured out. And it has. And in between the time of that last push, and when they said he was born, I could hear everyone holding their breath, just waiting for the sound of something we knew we wouldn't be hearing. He was only 3.5 ounces and 14 centimeters long. But every single inch of him was perfect. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth that was smiling, 2 ears, a heart, 10 fingers and 10 toes. And he was the most beautiful little boy that I had ever seen, besides his brother. Right after I gave birth, the nurse looked up over my knee and she said, "I have to inform you that you are no longer pregnant." And with those words, everyone in the room just, I could hear everyone breaking. I was in a trance. I didn't know what to do. I kept saying I was sorry. I had failed as a mother. was my job to keep him safe, and I failed. I could only spend about 4 hours, maybe 6. Time doesn't make sense anymore with him before I finally had to hand him over, because I felt he was degrading very quickly, and I was touching him, and I felt I was doing too much damage. My husband and I are slowly working through our grief in our own way. Being from the military, my husband doesn't deal with death like most people do. He's had to kind of shut himself off from those kinds of feelings for so long that it's hard for him to mourn someone. But he's okay. I'm still dealing with all of the physical effects of having a child and giving birth. I'm bleeding, and my milk is in, but I have no baby to feed. I haven't really slept in days. If I have, it's been for a few hours, and then I jerk myself awake. They've been dreamless. For the first time in 4 months, I didn't have a dream. And I thought maybe that was a good sign, because then it would mean that I'm dreaming. And then I'll wake up. Even though it's only been a few days, I no longer look like I am pregnant. There is no evidence that he was ever here. I just wanted to share this, and I know that it's hard to watch, but I needed to talk about it. Only one other woman in my family has had this visit her, and that is my grandmother. So I have been trying to talk to her about it a bit, but when she miscarried her children, it was in the time when she didn't even get a chance to see her children, possibly. She didn't have the services that we do, the medical services, and so she was limited. The only other person that had this visit upon her is my dad's mother. My dad is adopted, but she passed away 7 years ago. So I really don't have her to lean on right now. really at a loss as to what to say now. I'm no longer pregnant. And I have nothing left of him.